previous approach, which we call the 85%er, works about 85% of the time. When that procedure doesn't work, i.e. the weak muscle found related to a meridian doesn't strengthen to its own alarm point, that's when we go to the 24-hour clock. And we consider this like about a 10%er. So the 24-hour clock is the 24-hour cycle that the chi moves through, and it moves from meridian to meridian, staying at peaking. Each meridian has a peak period of about 2 hours. So one meridian will run into the next. I've used the analogy of a series of irrigation ditches or canals where each ditch represents a meridian, and the water is the chi, and it flows through this meridian. And of course, the purpose of the water flowing through the meridian is that it's distributed out to the field and the crops that surround it. The water, which is continually moving in this ditch, and a lot of it's being dispersed out, this water moves from meridian to meridian, or ditch to ditch, and crosses what's called a weir. It's like a miniature dam between two ditches, which controls how quickly or how much energy is moving into the next meridian at any given time. That weir or ditch is could be represented by the low point, the acupuncture point that allows the chi to go from one meridian to the next. Where is that? Oh, here it is. There's another. This wheel is a quick reference for, you can see the outermost edge of the circle is the times listed. Let's go back to that. So you can see, for example, gallbladder is 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Flows into the liver meridian, and you can see this the arrow in the outermost ring, the black arrow with the number 5. That the 5 is liver 5 is the low point, and so the energy moves from the gallbladder into the liver. And it shows here the associated points is the innermost zone of the circle. The next to the outer shows the meridian. You see gallbladder, liver, lung, large intestine, and then the outermost ring, it shows gives you the number, and that number is the low point. So, for example, the gallbladder 37 is the low point to allow energy to move from the triple heater meridian into the gallbladder. Liver 5 is the gate point or low point that allows energy to move into the liver, and then it goes into the lung. Lung 7 is the low point for lung, and so on and so forth. And then you can see down in the innermost zone the associated levels. T3-4 is going to be the associated spinal level on the meridian, on the bladder meridian, that corresponds to the lung meridian, for example. So this is a very helpful chart. We go to the one previous. It's actually the same. Yeah, it's the same chart. It just has a little more verbiage on it. So here's just a simplistic chart showing which meridian flows into the next. And what's interesting is they flow from for example, triple wormer is yang, yang to yang, yang to yin into liver, yin to yin, liver to lung, Lung to large intestine is yin to yang, and so on and so forth. Around it goes. So the low points, I like to use the analogy of the weir, or the no relationship to Bob Weir, to you Grateful Dead fans, but the weir, or it's considered a connector point. The low points are used to move energy from one meridian to the next. They also can be used to balance paired meridians to the right side and left, to one side of the body to the next. It is the low point can be also used in certain protocols that we won't get into quite yet, where you can access a problem with a meridian even though you're not in its peak time. For example, you might be treating a patient at 9 a.m. in the morning, but you're dealing with a gallbladder meridian problem, so there's ways to access that meridian even though you're not in the peak time. So anyway, act like a door between two rooms, a dam between two ditches, however you want to look at it. The low points, like the tonification and sedation points, are going to be located between the knees and the toes, and the elbows and the fingers. So they're conveniently located where you can get at them quite easily, and they're usually pretty easy to find. So, for example, if you look at this chart, this picture, this slide here, it has there's liver 5. You can see on the inner shin, about midway down. Spleen 4 is one I use a lot. It's right at the arch. Kidney 5 we use with kidney 5 on the right and bladder 58. You remember we use that for ileocecal valve, open ileocecal valve. Bilateral bladder 58, which is kind of the back lateral part of where the calf meets the, where the gastroc meets the soleus. So on and so forth. Stomach 40, gallbladder 37. These are points I use all the time when I'm doing these techniques. So here's how we use the 24-hour clock with muscle testing with AK. So we find a strong indicator muscle, and let's say we're using a quadricep or something that keeps both of the patient's hands free. We have the patient therapy localize to the wrist points, first the one side, then the other, and say, for example, we get a distal right pulse point shows weakness. Now that's lung, large intestine. Now we've got a couple choices there. If it's unclear whether it's lung or large intestine, we've got a couple of choices. For lung, we have a number of muscles. We have deltoid, coracobrachialis. For large intestine, we have hamstrings, TFL. TFL is always a favorite. So say we have a weak TFL on the right. So we have the patient TL to we say we have a muscle. Okay, so we have a strong indicator muscle, and we'll go back. We have a weak TFL on the right. We go to stomach 25, which is the alarm point for the large intestine meridian, but it fails to strengthen. Then we go to the 24-hour clock. We go back to the 24-hour clock, and if you can see at large intestine, it's kind of near the top to kind of to the right. The low point is going to be large intestine 6. Now the alarm point, we're going to go from the large intestine alarm point, stomach 25, back up on the 24 o'clock. So we go to the lung meridian. Now the lung alarm point is lung 1. So say, for example, a patient contacts lung 1 and the TFL turns on. Well, now we know that the energy is balled up, kind of held up in the ditch known as the lung meridian, the channel. We're going to then check the spinal level T3-4, which is the associated spinal level for lung, and look for a subluxation or some sort of dysfunction there. We're also going to check nutrition for lung. So we might check vitamin C or some other nutrient. And then we're going to treat the associated level T3-4. We're going to treat on the excess meridian. We're going to give nutrition on the excess meridian, which is the lung. But then we're going to treat large intestine 6, which is the doorway or weir, the gateway to allow the excess meridian chi that's balled up in the lung to come into what's become the deficient meridian, which is large intestine. So we treat large intestine 6, which is on the wrist or on the forearm. And we adjust at T3-4, and then we can go back and check the meridians again, check the pulse points again. And now sometimes when we do these protocols, we will go back and check again, and I'll find a different meridian will show up now. So I chase it down and try. My goal is to have none of the pulse points therapy localized. So once again, this slide again. Use this slide just to kind of get it in your mind how the energy flows. That way, when you're doing this protocol and you have to go to the 24-hour plan B, the 10%er, then it's just kind of in your mind right now. I kind of visualize it. I learned the pulse points and the flow of energy through the pulse points first, and that way when I'm checking pulse points, I kind of have it in my mind. They kind of jump around a little bit when you're in the pulse points, but not really. They kind of jump from the proximal right, which is triple warmer and pericardium, circulation 6. It goes from triple warmer, the chi does, into gallbladder, which is the middle pulse point on the left. So it kind of jumps around a little bit. So you go from the proximal right into the middle left, and then that goes into liver, which is the deep, the yin, and from liver it jumps across to the distal right into lung, large intestine, then to the middle right, and then from the middle right it goes stomach, spleen, and then spleen it goes to the distal left again, which is goes from spleen to heart to small intestine. Small intestine, it jumps over to bladder, which is the proximal left, and bladder, and then it goes into kidney, of course, which is the proximal left deep, and then from kidney it goes across to the proximal right into pericardium, and then from there into triple warmer and back to gallbladder. So at first it's just it's all over, but if you just keep going over that and get it in your mind, after a while it's not too crazy. And of course, have a chart handy. Have a wall chart handy so you can refer to the chart. That's a great way to learn it too. So anyway, once again, low points. I don't know why these slides are. Oh, that's because I backed up. Let's go ahead here. Low points. So There it is there. Low point, treat the low point of the deficient meridian, and you treat the spinal level and give nutrition to the excess meridian. In our example, it was lung. And then we adjust at the excess meridian's associated point. So we don't really use 24-hour clock for pain control like we can with the standard treatment. You use the tonification point, or the 85% where you use the tonification point. You can tap the tonification point. You can bring pain down. It's pretty effective. So here it is once again spelled out. Positive pulse point, weak muscle. Alarm point does not negate the weakness. Go back on the 24-hour clock to find the excess meridian. Now you may go back one meridian, you may go back 2 or 3 or 4 before you find the excess meridian. I'll give you another example here in a second. And then adjust and give nutrition for excess meridian. That's printed twice. I didn't catch that. This slide needs edited. Sorry about that. Go forward to first meridian, first deficient meridian, and you treat the low point. Let's give you another example here with the chart in front of us. So say, for example, we found large intestine, we found right TFL weak. And we TL'd the large intestine, stomach 25, which is just about an inch or so out from the umbilicus. And it failed to strengthen the muscle, so we back up to the lung alarm point, lung 1. Well, that doesn't do it either. So we go back to the liver, and liver 14, and that doesn't strengthen the muscle. We go back to gallbladder 24, the alarm point for the gallbladder, and there it strengthens the muscle. So TLing the gallbladder alarm point strengthens the right TFL. Well, now we treat we look at the spinal level, T11-12, the associated level for the gallbladder, and we check for subluxation. We also check nutrition. We might check bile salts or phosphatidylcholine or taurine, something like that. AF beta food from Standard or beta TCP from Biotics, beet extracts. And then we go forward. So we've kind of mobilized and stirred up this excess pool of energy in the gallbladder meridian. We go back to forward, and we treat liver 5. Now, what the idea is, you open the door, and then it's going to move from gallbladder to liver, liver to lung, lung to large intestine, and that TFL should turn back on. Now, one way you can double check yourself is you can therapy localize the low point. Just have the patient press the low point and see if the muscle turns on. Then you know you're on the right track. So that is, and we'll demonstrate that. I'll do a video to show how that works, but we'll workshop this, and I encourage you, if you can find someone that you can work with and practice these in the meantime. Next, we're going to move into the elbow, forearm, and wrist.